Yeah, it is.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Amy. I'm an intern for the Legal Education and Resource Network. And through this pre-law video series, we hope to connect you with professionals and give you an insight of what it means to be in the law field. Today, we have Nyssa Chopra, who is a tech lawyer, writer, mentor, world traveler, Fulbright scholar, and founder of the digital learning platform for law students and lawyers called Mentor in Law. The following questions come from a school survey taken in October and questions that you all have about the law field. So to begin, the first question is, what are you working on currently?
Yeah, thanks for the question and thanks for having me, Amy. So as you mentioned, I'm a tech lawyer based in Seattle. I work at Perkins Coie, which is a law firm it's headquartered in Seattle, but they have offices all over the United States and a couple internationally as well. So that's my full-time job, but I also work on Mentor in Law on the side on my free nights and weekends. But between those two, those are pretty much the two things that take up all my time.
So after such a commendable and varied history and background, what sparked your interest in law school?
So I've actually had an interest in law school since I was in high school. I had been wanting to go to law school and do international human rights law based on my exposure to Model United Nations back in high school, starting actually in middle school. And then I got more and more interested in it throughout high school and then college. And then I did a couple of internships and took several different classes related to international relations, to diplomacy and political science. I was poli-sci and international relations major in college as well. I ended up traveling and working at the State Department and doing a Fulbright fellowship and then a master's at the London School of Economics for 4 to 5 years, and then came back to the United States and then went to law school. And so that interest had been really started like many, many years ago, but I always knew no matter what I did, I was always going to come back and go back to law school. And so I came up to Seattle to go to law school at the University of Washington and developed a love of technology and trying to figure out how I could combine the two, the law and technology. And Seattle's such a great place for that, with the headquarters of Microsoft and Amazon and so many other tech companies. So it was sort of a sure in to get started in that field. So thankfully, I'm also able through my pro bono work to do many human rights cases, and so I'm able to kind of do both things that I like, and so that's been great.
Another question is, a lot of students are hesitant about taking a gap year. Do you have any thoughts on this? And what are some productive ways to spend your gap years that can help in your law school application?
So this is a great question, and I am a very big proponent of taking some time off between undergrad and going to graduate school, whether it's law school, whether it's business school, medical school, whatever it is. I think it's such a critical time because those are the years that you can learn a new language, you can develop new skills, you can really kind of learn more about yourself, whether it's, figuring out what you like, what you don't like, your strengths and your values. And really, it's a great time to introspect and reflect on what you have done and also what you want to do. And so you might find that after undergrad, you decided to go to law school, or you've always wanted to go to law school, but after some time to reflect about, on it, or to try different things, you decide that law school isn't for you. And so I think that that's a really important discovery to make during that time. And you might find that business school is better suited to your interests or to your goals. And so, you save yourself the heartache of going through 3 years and then having to, and then you're in debt, and then you've lost that time, and then you're not using that degree. And so taking, I think, a gap year really is a fantastic time to really get serious about that you definitely want to do law, and that you're not relying on this academic momentum that often happens for a lot of students because they don't know what else to do, or because they thought they wanted to do it and they don't know what else to do, and so they're just going to go along with it. or their parents tell them that they want to go to law school. And so, you know, a 3-year investment in time and money and resources is no joke. And so law school is not easy, and it's very expensive. And so that should be something that you're 100% sure that you want to do at the end of the day. So a gap year, I think, provides you that opportunity to really figure that out. And also, I also found that for me, when I went to law school after a couple of years of working and traveling and sort of living abroad and doing fellowships, I found that I had just this different seriousness of purpose when I went to law school. I knew myself probably a little bit better than maybe my colleagues and my peers who were straight from undergrad to law school. And that's super important, because you get to figure out what kind of law you want to practice. You get to figure out what you want to spend your time on and what you want to get involved with a lot easier and a lot faster. And that really can make or break your career at the end of the day.
And then another question is, how would an undergraduate student be able to secure an internship in a law firm?
So there is a lot of different ways to do that. I think getting real world experience starting in undergrad is a fantastic way to figure out if you want to go to law school, or figuring out what kind of practice you want to have, what kind of practice areas there are out there for you to discover. One of the best ways that I would recommend is seeing if your university has, and I think UCI does, a pre-law advisor or pre-law, I guess, center that you can rely on for resources. And they could probably connect you with either alumni, or they can connect you with lawyers that they know that are in the community that would be more than happy to speak with you. I have found that, if you just cold email or cold call different lawyers in the community, based on your research, and you think that this person's doing really interesting stuff, most people are really receptive to that, and they're really open to wanting to speak with law students, or even undergraduate students as well. It's always a delight, I think, for practicing lawyers to be able to reflect on our own experiences and the decisions that we made, and the mistakes that we've made along the way. And so hopefully we can pass it on to other students so they don't have to make similar mistakes. So I think that's one way, is really just kind of tapping into your university resources and getting in touch with your pre-law advisor. And I think this program here that I'm speaking on, the Learn initiative at UCI, is also fantastic, I think, to kind of give you that information about different people in the industry, and where you might find opportunities for internships. But other than that, the opportunities are really kind of endless. Like, it's up to you to kind of carve out what you want to do, and figure out what kind of path you want. But the opportunities are out there. You just have to go find it. And I didn't really have the luxury of having, when I was an undergrad, everything online, and Google, and it wasn't as robust as it is today. And so today, I think the opportunities are really just you're limited by your fingertips, really.
So question more towards like law school is, what helped you most when it came to the bar exam?
So the bar exam, there were a lot of things, but I think my biggest advice for the bar exam is to do just a ton of practice questions. The bar exam is not a test that you can just kind of show up to and just hope for the best. I'm sure some people do that and it works out for some, but I would say that for the most part, that's not the structure of it. There are actual patterns that they test you on, and the more you do it, the more you practice, the better you are at detecting those patterns. Because there's really only a finite number of ways that they can test you on civil procedure, on constitutional law, or any of the subjects that are tested. And so my advice to anybody taking the bar exam, whether you're taking a commercial prep course or not, or you're self-studying, is doing as many practice questions as possible, and reviewing those practice questions as well. It's not just about quantity, it's also about the quality of your review as well. And so even if you got a question right, I would take some time to review why you got it right. Make sure that it's not just a fluke that or just by chance you got it right. And if you got it wrong, of course, figure out why you got it wrong so you don't make that mistake again. Um, but beyond that, I would also recommend doing real practice questions instead of the simulated questions that often test prep courses provide. They're not bad, but they're not real questions at the end of the day. And so I think there's more than somewhere around 1,700 real test prep questions from previous bar exams that are circulating the internet at the moment. You can either buy it through the Board of Examiners, or you can get it through certain test prep test prep companies that have licenses with the governing body. So I would say practice, 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 and try to do as many real test prep questions.
And then what is one thing you would have done differently in law school?
Um, there's a lot of things I would have done differently. There's a lot of mistakes that I made that I, had to learn the hard way from. But life is always a series of chain reactions. And so the decisions I made during law school led to the outcomes that I have today. But if I could do it all over again, I would say I would have taken more time to learn more about the nuances of law school and the rigid timelines of the legal industry. For example, OCI, which is on-campus interviewing, is very particular about when you're supposed to interview with different firms. And once that window closes, it's very difficult to get a job at like a big law firm. And so if you just, it's not super intuitive, like the way this industry runs is not super intuitive. And so if you're not aware of it, it can sort of kind of catch you by surprise. And so I would recommend that every student starting at law school, takes the time to really understand, like, what are the timelines that I need to be cognizant of? Like, if I want to if I want to do a federal clerkship, what steps do I need to take in law school? And that often means being on one of the journals in law school. It's not required, but it definitely increases your chances. And so I think if I had to do law school over again, I wish I had known that information. I would have maybe done a federal clerkship. But I think beyond that, like as a first generation law student, like I didn't know what I didn't know. And that's usually the case. And so the more information that you can kind of get your hands on and the more questions you can ask, the better it is for you.
And then last question is, do you have any recommendations for people trying to learn more about the field and career?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many resources out there, and I think one of the the places to start is your university, whether you're an undergrad or getting a master's in between your law degree. That's one place to start. Start talking to different lawyers. Again, just reach out to them. Not everyone's going to respond. Not everyone's going to respond positively as well. But the more you do it, the better you get about outreaching to different lawyers. And so that's one way. I think another is that there's so many websites and podcasts and blogs that are dedicated now to helping law students, or helping the pipeline of the legal industry, helping new lawyers gain the necessary skill sets that they need as a modern lawyer in the 21st century. I would say starting with my own company, Mentor in Law, is a great place to learn more about the different practice areas, to learn what it's like to practice in that, in those particular areas, and learn from, the mistakes and the advice of other practicing lawyers. And of course, attend the events, learn, build up those practical skills, and really just get a better sense of what the legal industry is like on a day-to-day basis. I think for so many people, and myself included, that as a first generation, our touch points to the legal industry sort of is what we see on the TV or what we see in movies, and the practice of law couldn't be further from that. And so I think the more you can kind of root your understanding of what it means to be a practicing lawyer by talking to actual practicing lawyers, the better off you are. And again, it might save you, later on down the road, the time and the headache and the money of even going to law school if you, discover after a couple of internships or a couple of informational interviews that this is not the right path for you. The good news is that there's so many things you can now do with the law degree. And so I would take some time to figure out what are those different opportunities that are coming up that we don't even know at this time. Particularly with respect to legal technologies, there's so many jobs that are going to be created in the next 5-10 years that we're not even aware of at this time. And so I would really take some time to chart out what your interests are, what your strengths are, and sort of be guided by that instead of your passions.
Well, thank you, Nyssa, for sharing your knowledge and offering your time in order to make this information accessible to the student body. And thank you, everybody, for watching. I hope you enjoyed.